I would now like to pass the microphone on to Peter Buckley, who will be moderating today's session. Peter has worked with some of Australia's top corporate entities as keynote speaker, MC, voice artist, and presentation skills and media skills coach and mentor. He is a regular corporate mentor in presentation skills and media skills with clients including PowerLink, CSIRO, Child Support Agency, and Repco. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Peter.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello and good afternoon. And a delight it is on varying weather days around the country from where we all sit with Kevin Cahalane in Victoria in freezing cold conditions, Kurt Juson in a comfy office, and me in sunny Queensland. So welcome to everyone from wherever you are. And actually, Kurt, what I might get you to do at this stage, if we can, and we have Kurt Juson from Redback Conferencing. Kurt's going to talk to us about how the conferencing process works in this regard, and then Kevin on your sales force getting the performance and results. Now, what I thought we might do, Kurt, is just explain the process very briefly by kicking off with a poll that can be done by anybody when they're running one of these webinars. So let's go to that very, very quickly, just to explain that for us.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we'll run a few polls out of the gate to understand a little bit about the audience. I think we have a first one here. Position titles, if we can bring that up. So we'll run several of these throughout the webinar. Select a role that best suits you, and if you're other, then type it into the message box in the bottom right there. The webinar as a whole, so we can take questions throughout. I think we're going to run a presentation with Kevin initially, and then we're going to hand over to myself, polls throughout, and questions throughout that will be moderated by you, Peter.
Okay. Generally, how long do these polls take?
10 to 15 seconds.
Okay.
So act quickly. Otherwise, you'll miss out.
All right. We got some results there?
We do.
Okay.
So we can see that the majority of people here are obviously running a sales team, business owners and sales managers. To be expected, I think. Given the title. Okay, and here's another one. In your market, what are your biggest sales issues? I might select one of these myself. Wow. I think you could say all of the above are challenges. And here we go. Gaining new clients for a tough market. All of the above, 20% each. And 10% there of winning back premium lost accounts.
Cool. And the last one?
I think we've got one more poll to come.
Yep.
Here we go. So what are the biggest current needs within your sales team? A, improving their planning or call preparation, building their sales skills in a tough market, improving their new business prospecting, or improving their lost business win-backs. And I've answered. Okay, a little bit more of a spread. We've got 10% with improving planning and call preparation, very important. Improving the new business prospecting, and all of the above, 30%. Okay,
cool. Thanks, Kurt. That just gives you an idea of how you can get the conference process going, just to get people involved and see how we go from there. Of course, it's also given Kevin some tips very, very quickly. So I'd like to bring in Kevin Cahalane here from Sales and Service Momentum. Kevin, tell me now, sales performance, how to improve the performance and results of your sales force. Do tell us about it.
Okay. Thanks very much, Peter. Three things I'm going to talk about fairly briefly here. The first is coaching. The second will be mentoring, and how coaching and mentoring will help your sales team. So let's move straight into the coaching slide. I love this quote. It's not enough to do your best. You must know what to do and then do your best. And I think every sales manager is charged with the duty of getting the best from their people. I don't think anybody would argue that. And the definitions you see there for coaching, the first of all, it's support and guidance in the field. Now, Kurt's going to be talking a little bit more about webinars, but coaching is actually accompanying your people on sales calls, a variety of sales calls, as I'll discuss, and going out in the field with them. You're also looking at three things in improving individual performance, because coaching really, really is about performance management, improving their business knowledge, improving their mainly sales skills, but also looking at their attitude. And when you're not with them, you really don't know what they're doing, what they're saying. But when you are with them, some interesting things can happen. Coaching programs should be tailored to individual needs. Some people are more skilled than others, so other people have more experience than others, so you need to look at your people and tailor your coaching to their individual needs. Obviously, in the next line, in line with organizational goals, and that would be in most sales organizations to achieve key objectives and sales targets. It's managing performance for measurable results, and that's really what coaching is about. The next area is mentoring. The first thing I've got on the slide here is creating a model of excellence. All of your people need somebody to aspire to. If you have a sales team, do they aspire to you and the role you play, or do you have a high performer, or do you have a candidate for advancement, somebody that will buddy up or be a mentor to various salespeople within your organization? I think that can be very, very important. Coaching is conducted in the field. Mentoring is more internal. And, of course, where you have a distance or remote sales force, webinars are great to mentor with individuals. Now, it says there a range of issues discussed on a planned or a random basis. Again, the issues are performance-based issues, but I often see with mentoring salespeople, the issues are also sometimes of a personal nature, as opposed to sometimes they're not performing in the field because they've got personal issues, and mentoring is a good way to get through this. It's always for a win-win outcome. It's growing the skills of the individual, improving their performance, and improving the results for the organization. The last thing here, Peter, is what coaching and mentoring and how coaching and mentoring will help your team. As it says there's 5 key things. It'll increase people's responsibility and their accountability. And I always say accountability is measured in terms of output and sales and profits, where responsibility is doing the right thing. It will unlock or enhance their sales abilities. I said a moment ago, many sales managers, they don't know what their people are doing out in the field, how they're actually acting with customers, what they're achieving, what they're not achieving. The only way you're ever going to do that is if you accompany your people in the field. This will enable you to get them to perform to their full potential, with you to guide them and help them. And it will also, and I think this second last one, very important, increase awareness of their sales contribution. There's 2 things here. The first thing, it'll get them to see the big picture of where they actually fit overall in the organization. And the second part of that is, everybody who's here today, ask yourselves a question. How much does an individual sales call cost? Is it $50 every time a salesman or sales lady walks in the room to see a customer? Is it $100? Is it $200? I think coaching and mentoring will enable your people to see what it costs and what they contribute. And the last thing there, it removes growth barriers. That, in essence, Peter, is what coaching and mentoring will do for your sales team.
Okay, you mentioned getting out there amongst them. When is the right time to do that? Is there a preferred time? Are there set time frames, durations, that sort of thing, as far as coaching and mentoring is concerned? Okay.
Basically, where coaching and mentoring fits, this is by no means an exhaustive list. I believe the top 2, a new hire induction. Once the new hire has been thoroughly trained, I believe it's time to coach him. Many years ago, my first ever sales job was with Kimberly-Clark in the UK. I did 6 weeks on the road with their top salesperson, and he trained me for 6 full solid weeks. I was then sent to their head office for a week's training, live-in training with a bunch of other new hires. I was then coached by my new sales manager over a period of about 2 months. Not every day, but probably every fortnight and then monthly. That was back in the 1970s. That doesn't happen today. I very rarely see that. After training and skills development, the best way to continue a person's growth, a salesperson's growth, is to coach them and mentor them. The third thing that's there is when they actually request it. A little hint here, everybody. If you're thinking of coaching, very few people actually request it because they really don't know what it's about. But once they find out how you can help them and assist them and make them better at what they do, the requests tend to come thick and fast. The fourth one is, if the results aren't there, well, that's your request. Another area where it fits is for personal development, where the person can actually see that he or she will develop as a salesperson if they get good quality coaching. The other area, second to last there, is performance review. Every organization has a once-a-year performance review, and I think you can develop coaching programs from there. One other thing that not everybody picks up, it sometimes has to do with company and culture changes. If there are changes in the organization, new brooms, sweeping clean, et cetera, a coaching and mentoring program can be very, very important. Once again, bottom line, it's managing performance to achieve sales targets and improve results, Peter.
It's interesting you mentioned culture because I emceed a conference only in the last couple of days where a franchise group had taken over a smaller company that had a number of little shops associated with it. They're all going to be rebranded and they're all going to be coming under the new banner. And one of the issues for them is that culture change for the 4 or 5 other shops that are going to come into the new brand space. And they're just wondering how they're going to work that, and that's one of the things they're working on. Now, you did mention, and you kind of leaned on it, coaching and mentoring, but more so performance-based.
Okay. There's 2 areas I'll talk for a moment about on performance-based coaching, Peter. First one is the old CRM, or customer relationship management. 2 areas that I'll look in there. First part of that is how your sales team plan. That is one of the biggest areas that coaching will help. Most salespeople actually don't plan properly. I've been working with about 24 salespeople around Australia, and that is their biggest lack, is actually planning. The second part of that, as you can see, is actually running through the sales process. Okay, what do they do? Things like how they open the sale, the questions they ask, discovering needs. Do they actually go through a sales process? Something that's not on the slide is record keeping. Most organizations today have a contact management system, but I don't know if everybody knows the old GIGO, GIGO. That stands for garbage in, garbage out. And that's what a lot of contact management systems, people just don't keep records up to date, and it's just rubbish. So that's part of it, is you're planning your sales process. The second part of customer relationship management is how your salespeople actually service their customers, and in many ways build a protective moat between them and the opposition. Now, that is very, very much a part of performance-based coaching, and everything there can be accountable and monitorable. That's what I call farming. That's a statement that came out of the States, because there are a lot of farmers around. But the second part there is what I call turning farmers into hunters. There's not a lot of hunters around in sales today. We've had 21 years of really, really good times in this country. We've had prosperity in this country. We get a little blip and everybody's moaning, but the reality of it is 21 years of business growth and sales growth. So turning farmers into hunters, coaching, 2 things there. First is gaining new business and winning back quality lost business. Big lacking in Australia at the moment. A lot of people really, really don't prospect. The second part is what I call drill wide and drill deep. Take a good look at your current clients and how coaching will help your salespeople with current accounts introduce new product lines, introduce new services, look for other accounts within the business or within the group of businesses that they service. And that, to me, is what's called hunting and turning farmers into hunters. Those are probably 2 very, very measurable parts of performance-based coaching, Peter.
Okay. Just bear in mind also, yes, I'm more than happy to ask questions, but if you have a question to ask Kevin at this stage, make sure you jump on and type in your question there, and I'll certainly put it to him. Now, when you're conducting a sales coaching campaign, I mean, obviously there are multiple factors here, and you've talked about customer relationship management, and sometimes that's just a hideous thing that people are trying to do. What is the most important in a coaching campaign? What do you lean on most?
All right. With a coaching session or a coaching campaign, There are a number of things, and I've only got about 6 things here on the slide, and I'll go through them for everybody. The first thing I think that needs to be crystal clear whenever you're going to take somebody out on the road and coach is that there are specific objectives of the call. Now, I tend to recommend that you go on the road for a day with a person and that you have a mix of calls. In other words, perhaps some new business prospecting or some lost business win-back and calling on some current accounts. The current accounts might be a service call or it may be expanding the business. But I think both the sales manager and the salesperson has to know the specific objectives for every single call. What I also there is involve the KISS principle, and I think that's been around for a long time now. Keep it short and simple is the more accepted version, but I think it started life as keep it simple, stupid. But it just ensures that everybody's on track in coaching. You don't go in a coaching session and say to your salesperson, okay, I'm going to be looking at 12 things that you do, starting from the introduction right through to closing. No. On a sales call, you might pick 2 or 3 or maximum 4 things. For instance, you might look at their questioning skills. You might coach on their presentation skills. You might look, do they do some cross-selling or upselling? Or you might look at their closing skills or how they gain long-term commitment. I would say keep it very, very short and simple on coaching calls, and you'll get absolutely maximum out of the call. The third thing I've got down there, and this is fairly contentious with a number of people, if you're talking, you're not coaching. Now, I've spoken to sales managers who will say, all right, I'm going in with her, and I'm going to introduce us to the customer. I'm going to ask a few questions. I'm going to take the customer through, and she can pick up, and she's been coached. No, that's not so. The person needs to introduce herself or himself. They need to introduce you, and they need to do most of the talking. How else are you going to pick up if they're on track or if they're way, way off base? So if you're talking, you're not coaching. Coaching is all about listening, which moves me to the fourth point. The best way to do this is to actually give status to your customer. In other words, you're calling on the person, you're introducing yourself, or your salesperson introduces, I brought my sales manager along to meet with you. You and the customer get the niceties out of the way. You then sit back and listen to what your salesperson has to say. The customer's happy enough. I've never seen a customer object because the sales manager's on the call, and that indeed gives status. 2 final things in this slide are areas to cover. Post-call feedback. That is two-way. If they didn't do a good call, you can slam them, and you can tell them all the things they did wrong. Well, that's not going to accomplish anything. What I feel you need to talk about is what you liked, what you thought they could improve, and how they felt about your feedback, both positive and critical. Once you've gone through the actual call and you've given feedback and you've listened to their feedback, the thing to do on the spot is set in place a performance improvement action plan. And that is, let's say as an example, we're going to ask more quality questions. I'm going to give you a list of questions which I'd like you to go over, and we're going to try this over the next 2 weeks, and we're going to go out on the road again, and we're going to focus on your questioning skills and perhaps your presentation skills. That, to me, is a performance improvement action plan. You've given them specific measures, and you've given them a time frame. And that basically, in a fairly brief session, is conducting a coaching session and building that into a full coaching program, Peter.
Cool. Kevin, I have a question here from Jeremy Indude, and he's just gone back to a previous slide there where you're talking about hunters and farmers.
Yes.
And the question is, how do you turn farmers into hunters, short of dragging them off to the firing range and showing them how to shoot?
Okay, look, I probably in some ways, and we'll just encapsulate this now into one, how you turn farmers into hunters. It's simple, but it's not easy. The first thing I feel that's very, very important is they need training. And I'll say this again, so many people in Australia today, they can service people, they have the basics in sales, but they don't go beyond the farmer mentality. So they need training. They need to be looked at how you get out there, how you can prospect, how you can use the telephone for prospecting, how you conduct a new business call, some of the things you need to actually, as skills you need to bring into play when you're looking to win back quality lost customers. That all comes from training. The second thing that is going to turn farmers into hunters is you, the audience. Those of you sales managers, You need to get out there with them. And as I said a little earlier, if you go out for a day with them, it's a mix of calls. The first thing you look at is calling in maybe 2 or 3 current accounts. You can assess their performance and that's see how they go. But the key then is say, okay, we're going to do, let's say, on the day, 2 new calls and 1 lost business win back. Let's go over who we want to call on, what do we need. You know, things like looking up information on the on websites, doing as much preparation as you can, but they need to actually be coached and taken on calls. And I hope that answers the question. It is very simplistic, but that's probably the only way that you're really going to turn dead-set farmers into hunters, through training and through quality coaching.
Yeah, you're going to have to lead them some, though, aren't you? Just how important you can suggest things. I imagine as a manager, a sales manager, or a general manager, you can suggest things. Perhaps you can offer some tips, but the leadership process, are you actually grabbing them by the nose and pulling them through, or what is the leadership process in this regard? And is that vitally important, or will just a shove do?
Well, yes, you can give them tips and hints, Peter, but the reality of it is you need to have a performance-based plan. I think with all the goodwill in the world where you say, oh, I think you should do this or you should do that, that's fine. And some will follow it and some will say, yeah, right. And within about 3 days, they're back to habits because as social creatures, we like to do what we're comfortable with doing. Leadership is the key. And I think a couple of things that's really going to get people up and really turn farmers into hunters. The first thing I look at is the Isaac Newton principle. This is a principle that I have actually pegged parts of my life around. Many, many years ago, I had people who helped me, who mentored me, who guided me. And the Isaac Newton principle, he once said, if I can see a long way, it's because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. And in the past, I have stood on the shoulders of giants. I've had really, really good men and women in the past who have helped me in so many ways and built my sales career and my sales management career. And I think you yourself, as a sales manager who's part of this webinar, I think you need to provide broad shoulders for your people and get them to stand on those shoulders and show them the way. Part of that, if we look at the second slide, is through absolute clarity of communication. Now, Peter, you mentioned a moment ago giving him a few tips and maybe some hints and guidelines. That's fine. But to me, it's really saying, okay, this is what we need to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how we're going to do it, and this is how long it's going to take, and we're going to see the changes made. That can be through training. It can be through coaching in the field, or it can be through internal mentoring. Another good way for a good leader, and I haven't mentioned this before, is having really, really high-quality meetings. I've been to sales meetings, and I've done everything I possibly can just to keep awake, and I don't know how the salespeople get through it. Another area, obviously the third part of that slide, is to remove obstacles and provide resources. What do your people really, really need? Do you flip them a laptop or an iPhone and say, there you go, you've got a resource? Or do you train them how to use these resources and actually remove some of the obstacles that I see in sales, which, again, sometimes is too much paperwork, it's over-planning, just helping them in so many ways that take obstacles out of their way. And every time, to me, it's, as I said, they're constant, it's team development and individual mentoring. The fifth part of that slide, and again, it amazes me, but I don't see it a lot. I go to a lot of sales meetings, I meet a lot of salespeople, and I work with sales managers. Praise and recognition, very, very sparse. And that's not like things, okay, guys, we've had a good week, let's move on. That's actually recognizing individuals, recognizing a team, and looking at how you can recognize these people and what you're going to give them. But to me, the last part there is a good sales leader takes bold, decisive action. They make tough decisions. And once again, performance or non-performance. And that's only if you train them and coach them and mentor them. And that probably, Peter, is what leadership is all about in sales today.
We do obviously have leaders online here, and some are probably going, good Lord, that sounds like an extra workload on top of what it is I already do. But is there a correlation between just how much of this leadership you do and the results you get? You know, are there parallels? Are there ways of defining it? And are we putting an extra amount of workload on these leaders already when they already have plenty to do?
I would actually think that a lot of people in sales and sales management today, I don't think they actually give leadership a priority. To me, sales leadership and working closely with your people is what a sales manager should be looking at, rather than getting lost in figure work and paperwork and meetings. They should be out there in the field and probably devote something, depending on the size of the team. And most sales managers I work with seem to have from about 3 to about 7 salespeople on their teams. And to me, it's anything from 1 to 2 days a week working with various team members and as I said, coaching them, guiding them, conducting some on-the-job training with them, whatever it takes to build their skills and to improve their performance. That, to me, is the key part of what leadership is all about, and not all the, oh boy, I'm so busy, stuff that goes in the background. Out there with your people is what it's all about.
If you've got a sales force of 3, is that easier to work with as against 100? I mean, is it just a different scale, or what's the process?
Well, I think if you have a sales force of 3, that's probably you're it, Peter. However, if you've got a sales force of 100, you probably have sales managers, state-based sales managers, specialty sales managers, and these are areas that you as a leader would probably want those sales managers, turn them into coaches and mentors. I do actually have a case study of an organization that I've worked for. Would it be okay to give that? Because I think it dovetails back to what you were just saying.
Sure, absolutely.
The company I work for I've been with them now for 12 months, and they're Sandvik Coromant. And what they do is they sell milling, drilling tools. They work in the automotive industry, the aerospace industry, and it's a very, very tough marketplace.
Can I ask a quick question? What's the size of their sales force?
Okay, they have 5 sales managers, and they have a total of 24 salespeople around Australia. So the average is 4 to 5 salespeople per sales manager. And that's probably a reasonably enough average, I would say.
What kind of structure is required for that?
Okay, what we did, I've worked with their sales teams. However, I've done the bulk of my work with the sales managers. And this is actually what we did as the case study. About a year ago, we did a tailored workshop with them. And when I say tailored, I mean highly tailored. We did everything was from Sandvik's point of view, not generic, the real deal. We had very, very strong skills practice exercises where we set up a coaching model in the training room, and the guys went away with some very, very specific tasks, set objectives, and some very, very real skills. I then worked with the 5 sales managers on a monthly basis. We conducted teleconferences, we conducted some webinars, and I also went and coached them one-to-one, some of them in estate-based sites, and hone their skills. So we really, really put a number of different areas into that. We just recently did a second workshop, and we looked at some new areas. We continue to build their skills. Now, what has happened, they've had a very, very dramatic impact on Sandvik, on the sales team, because these guys are now some very, very skilled operators. And I'd like to, it'll only take a moment, but I actually got a little note from Peter Rolauer, who is the National Sales and Marketing Manager of Sandvik Coromant. And I'd like to, rather than saying what I've achieved, I'd like to read what he said. And he says, after working with Kevin for the past year, we firmly believe that he has positively contributed to our organization's growth. Being the leading brand in a mature market, we're always looking to hone our competitive edge, and with the addition of Kevin and his approach to management and sales training, this has provided that edge, or in market share terms, the 1 to 2% growth we are continually seeking each year. I tried to get him to say 60 to 70% growth, but he kept that quite modest. But that's basically what has happened there. He compares it to a footy team, and everybody today talks about football. The 1 to 2%ers are what wins the game. Sandvik have some very, very tough competitors who are out there and they're selling totally on price. Sandvik are the market leader, and they're continuing to be the market leader, and they've got some very, very, very strong sales managers, and they've got a very well-coached sales team. And that's basically what, to me, Peter, sales coaching and mentoring is all about, to lead to performance improvement and better results, bottom line.
Yeah, bottom line is the terminology. You know, there are bound to be some leaders here today who are going, yeah, but I'm being squeezed in all directions. how can I really look at this in a controlled manner? But you'd suggest surely that, and I'm kind of posing a question and making a point, that if you don't do it, then you're just going to slip behind in your sales processes with your team.
To me, Peter, being totally frank with you, it's all about prioritizing. As a sales manager, as a sales leader, you need to look at what are my priorities. And to me, your team is your number one priority. You're out there as the giant with the big shoulders, and you need to guide and coach and mentor and train your people and get them to perform. Then you can get bogged down in all the other nonsense. But yeah, be a leader, be out there, be upfront with your team, and they'll do everything that's required.
What amount are we talking about here? Are we talking, a day a week? Are we talking a day a month? Every few months? What?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the team, but I think if you've got probably 4 or 5 different, let's say 4 or 5 team members or 6 team members in your sales team, I would look to between 1 and 2 days a week in the field with your people.
And I suppose that leads us towards Kurt to some degree, but for many sales managers and general managers, 1 or 2 days out of the office is probably not an ability they can do on a regular basis. From your perspective, is an occasional phone call enough? Is an occasional webinar enough? Is what is the minimum?
I think with coaching, you've got to be out on the road. That's what coaching is all about. You've got to see what they do. You've got to look at performance improvement. I think where webinars are absolutely invaluable is mentoring and discussing things, particularly with a remote or a distance sales team. I think webinars are fantastic. But once again, Peter, we don't want to labor the point, but a good sales manager, a good sales leader is out there with his or her team.
Okay, let's
he's building their skills and he's building their strengths.
Let's pose the question to everyone online here, and perhaps you can just give me some idea via the messages box there. That are you in a position to do that, and have you been doing that so far? And we might just kind of tie that in with what you're saying there, Kevin. So if you can tell me very briefly via the messages box whether you're in a position to do that and how you're managing to do that kind of coaching and mentoring, or at least to some degree. We might be able to tie some of that in with how Kurt might be able to help the situation. So, Kevin, what I might do at this stage is just get you to hold there. I'm sure we'll get some more questions up, and at this point, we might bring Kurt in relation. I should introduce you a little. Kurt Juson from Redback Conferencing. We've seen how you've done the poll. Now, from a coaching mentoring position where businesses may have sales teams who are remote, who are in regional areas, and the head of the business may be in Melbourne, and they've got people in Darwin, that sort of thing. How can we take what Kevin is saying and do this with your product here? Tell me about it.
Yeah, if I might just take a step back and join that conversation that ended with Kevin there around is it feasible to be out with your sales team 2 days a week? I think I'm the sales manager here, and that is my role. I think that's about 100% of my role is to be out with the sales team. We do a lot of our sales calls, and I'll come to this, using the technology that we're meeting with today. But certainly in terms of the coaching and mentoring, I feel that that's what being a sales manager is all about. And I should be on as many sales calls with the team as I can be.
Well, okay, can I jump in there? What do you look for? What are you listening for when you're in those sales calls? For our sales team, and this is both, if we come back to this hunters and farmers, we look for innate curiosity, people that ask the tough questions. In terms of a structure, we look for a very clear setting of an agenda for the day, a good positioning statement, and then moving into really understanding the client, and that's where we get into that innate curiosity. So if I'm with a BDM on a sales call, I'm looking to see that there's not necessarily, the framework doesn't need adhere to every step of the way, but there's a framework to lean on. And I like to see that framework is being followed, essentially, because it's proven. We have a proven methodology and framework that we adhere to as a sales team that's been successful time and again. Cool. All right. then let's go back to my earlier question then of how this conferencing process can work.
How it can relate. Oh, well, we've got a slide, I think, the next one up here, online coaching and mentoring. And the first thing that comes to mind is the effectiveness and the efficiency of meeting online. There was a comment earlier about the bottom line, and I have a dispersed sales team, and how can I do this effectively? So a great way to coach and mentor is bringing your team together online like this. A personal example close to home, we have a business coach who moved to Tweed Heads. So we still meet face-to-face and would never advocate doing away with that altogether. But we can hook up, whether it's formal or scheduled, online like this. Webcams, we can share anything essentially that we would share in person online this way. And then for larger scale, we're all in the one office here, but for larger scale mentoring sessions, and this is coming back to, again, something that Kevin touched on, bringing together, I think it was 5 sales managers, Kevin, across a 25-person sales team. They're all in different locations, so what a great way to be able to increase the contact from a coach and a mentor, and anytime you can increase that contact and bring together your trainers and your coaches with your sales team, then that's got to be a good thing.
Would you see a direct percentage of improved performance by you regularly touching base with them in that regard?
We're touching base with, well, we have. Yeah, we absolutely have. So the coaching and the mentoring that we receive has been fantastic in terms of our results. Haven't necessarily measured it. However, the feel, the number of the business that's coming in, and again, coming back to that that framework and methodology that was implemented by a coach and that I can continue to coach to. This is probably something that Kevin would advocate as well, is the framework and the system comes from the coach or the mentor, generally outside of the business, but it's important that the sales manager continues to coach and mentor his team according to that methodology.
I imagine if you've got a salesperson who is remote or away from the office and can't get the high fives on a regular basis, this is an efficient way to keep the juices flowing, to keep the energy up. Yeah,
sure is. So this is our platform. We provide this to many other businesses, including coaching and mentoring individuals and businesses. So really seeing a growing trend where, and not replacing the face-to-face again, but allowing more regular contact. So part of a coaching program is, yes, we get together perhaps once a quarter, but once a month we're able to meet and really reinforce by webinar the principles and the concepts that we're learning.
When you're talking about using this kind of technology with potential new clients, how do you introduce it? I mean, if your potential client hasn't been involved before, they may be a bit tech bunnied. How do you introduce this process?
Engaging prospects and clients through web conferencing. That's the question?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Sure. So we've grown really dramatically. I'll take a step back here. Over the last couple of years, we've been recognised by the BRW and Smart Business, and absolutely key to our growth has been the use of web conferencing. So how do we engage clients that way? Right from the outset, right from a cold call, we will suggest that let's meet online, you from your desk, me from mine, and we can, in our case, show you what some of the conferencing technologies have to offer, understand if we can be of benefit to your business. But it's a soft proposition. Let's meet online. Webcams, I can share the information with you here, as opposed to trying to get a face-to-face meeting. The face-to-face meeting can come afterwards, but there are many meetings that we get that we wouldn't be able to get without web conferencing. Perhaps it's travel, or perhaps it's that somebody doesn't want a quote-unquote pushy salesman across the desk from them, but they're willing to have them through the computer screen. But we really... we've used web conferencing to engage with prospects and clients at every stage, really. And we've been able to get rich and meaningful communication that we wouldn't be able to achieve through phone and email alone. And it's allowed us to Sorry, Peter.
No, keep going.
Well, it's just allowed us to really focus our energy or effort in the right direction and talking to the right people regardless of their location.
Okay, let me ask a question of Kevin at this stage. When you're making a sales type proposal or nattering to somebody in a sales base on a webinar, are there better ways of doing things that are different to face-to-face, or are there, say, some areas you shouldn't head into because it's you're not quite fully connected, you actually haven't shook hands?
Okay. Now I'll be quite upfront here. I've actually not conducted a sales call via a webinar, Peter.
Okay.
So I'm probably not really qualified to say that all of my sales calls have been face-to-face. I've done presentations on webinars and not done many of those. So I really probably couldn't answer that question in fullness because I've never done it.
Okay. Kurt, can I put the same to you?
And the question was,
what no-goes should you recognize in a webinar situation? I don't know. There may be none, but are there no-go areas? Are there ways you should do things slightly differently because you're not sitting in front of somebody and spilling coffee on them?
Be punctual like you would to a normal meeting. I think what we see a lot of, not from us but from clients, is because it's an online meeting, it's easy to forget about as opposed to somebody knocking on your front door. Perhaps what is important during an online meeting, I've found webcams. Absolutely webcams. Being able to see the person on the other end is critical. But it needs to also be quick and easy. The flip side to that, to answer your question, might be the no-goes, installing software. If you're asking somebody to meet you for essentially what came out of a cold call, an initial sales call, having them install software in order to participate in your meeting can really cause some hassles or some, I don't want to do that, so no thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then telephone audio is generally pretty important. Quite convenient to have audio through the computer, but if you're prospecting into perhaps a regional area, or hey, it could be a city area that just doesn't have good internet connection, and there's lots of those. So I'm prospecting into an area that has bad internet connectivity. I'm trying to make a good impression. It's my first call, and the audio starts dropping out. Not a good impression. So stick with the phone. Utilize the web interface for a product demonstration, screen sharing, PowerPoint slideshow, whatever it might be.
I'm sure you're more than happy to see. We've run a quick poll there. Do you currently use web conferencing to engage prospects and or clients? And 41% are saying no, 18% is saying yes, which suggests to me there's plenty of people you can talk to in that regard. See? Always there's a positive. Now, there is a question, I suspect it's probably to you, Kevin, at this stage from Vic Rossi, as to what would be the ideal ratio of sales manager to sales team that would allow for effective coaching and mentoring?
It is a difficult one, but most of my experience, there's probably been a minimum of 3 up to a maximum of 6 or 7. I think probably a good ratio would, be no more than 9 in your sales team. But the other thing I think you've got to look at, Vic, in asking a question like that, is the skills of your sales team. Now, just give you an example here. If you have 9 basically unskilled first-time salespeople that you're putting together, that is going to be extremely demanding, and I think everybody would see that. If you have a mix of about 3 newish people that are lacking in skills and 3 people that are fairly average and only have one way to go, and that's up, and you've got 3 really, really strong performers, obviously you don't need to spend as much time with the strong performers as you do with the average and the new unskilled people. So it really is, it's not so much the numbers, but it's the knowledge and the skills and the attitude of the team that's really going to determine how much time that you're going to have to put into them. And
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that as well. We're getting up to 9 in our sales team now. And the more experienced don't require as much support, the lesser experienced do.
So, Kurt, if I'm doing some coaching and mentoring via one of your conferences.
Mm-hmm.
How do I create the follow-up to that? Obviously you want to see that yes, you've passed on information and you've got people actioning stuff. How do you see whether that's actually happening, and what would you recommend as a better way of, what's the word, Kevin, of monitoring or what?
Yeah, monitoring and I guess bottom line accountability.
Yeah, okay. All right. So is there a better way of doing it with your conferencing process?
Well, it's a little difficult if it's conferencing. I mean, I'm on a lot of sales calls using the conferencing facility. That's one of the sales teams. It's their sales call. I just come along and join as well, lend a hand, and obviously critique afterwards. So in doing that, I can then see whether the coaching and training is being implemented at the coalface by the BDM. Other than that, coaching and mentoring that's provided through a web interface that the BDM or the salesperson then goes out and does a sales call in their remote region, pretty hard to know what's going on. I think it comes back to you've got to be alongside your salespeople and out there on sales calls as much as possible as a sales manager.
Okay, let me put it to Kevin then. Is there a way that you know of that can monitor the response to this webinar kind of leadership?
Look, I'd probably go back to what...
Other than seeing sales go through the roof, of course.
Yeah.
I was going to say the bottom line.
Yeah. It is a difficult question for me, Peter. I'm still very firm belief, and Kurt has just said it a moment ago, you do need to be on a one-on-one basis with people to really know what their performance is when they're with a customer. I can understand that you can conduct prospecting webinars, absolutely, and you can be there with your salesperson, and I don't think the criteria would actually change. Would it, Kurt? I don't think you'd be still looking at their performance. You'd be still looking at their planning and things like that if you're doing a dual call like that on a webinar, just the same as you would probably on a face-to-face call. So I don't think anything would change in that. But getting back to what Kurt said, if you need to be with your people when they're on a call, and in-field coaching is very, very important and a very, very powerful way to manage performance and improve performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important admission here is we don't have a remote sales team at Redback. We have many customers that do and use our platform to communicate with them. But from our experience here, the more we get together, the more role plays we do, the more we share ideas, the more collaboration there is, the more we talk about strategy and tactics, the more it inspires the team. Right, the more activity that promotes, and activity is what leads to revenue. Now, I imagine that's no different to us sitting in a room together a couple of times a week, 3 times a week, having these sessions to my team spread across the country. Let's do it online. The idea of a web conferencing platform is it makes it affordable to bring your team together on a regular occasions for these various activities.
I have a question of you, Kurt. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot a bit, perhaps, but Kevin mentioned he had one client who it really worked for with his coaching and mentoring. Do you have an example of a client or something that has worked sensationally well with the conferencing system?
Collaborating with the sales team?
Well, yeah. I mean, some.
Yeah. Sure.
Tell me something that you've seen has worked sensationally well.
Yeah, insurance company. I can't name the insurance company because I haven't vetted this by them, but large insurance firm. They have home offices, BDMs working from home essentially, and they're one of our larger clients. They're constantly using the service. And they have the national sales manager. He's having meetings with his state managers. The state manager turning around, they're having meetings with their respective regional managers. The regional managers are turning around and they're having their respective meetings with the guys on the ground, on the bridge every day, on the audio and web conferencing bridge every day. And the feedback from them is fantastic. They were communicating through phone calls, individual phone calls, sometimes a small conference call, and email. And I found it in their words, 10 times more effective to be able to go through product launches, share ideas, impart concepts through sharing slides and having the webcams up and seeing each other.
Okay. Kevin, just we've got a few minutes to go here before we have to pull the pin, but when you go into a company and start talking with the sales team in a coaching, mentoring situation, what do you look for? What are the things you see regularly that are just glaring and yet somebody hasn't seen it?
In terms of management or the salespeople?
Well, the management process, because we're talking about leadership. So,
okay.
So, yeah, what do you see that's glaring that let me give you an example. As a presentation skills coach and mentor, and certainly as a speaker on presentation skills, I will always say that people forget to breathe. Is the first thing that occurs when they stand up to speak in front of a group of people. They don't get the breathing process happening, and that affects everything. So from a simple thing that I see in relation to presentation skills and coaching and mentoring, how about for you from a sales coaching mentoring process in the leader? What do you not see so often, or what do you see so often that is just a glaring factor for you?
A few of the things that I see on quite a number of occasions is, by the way, they all breathe, which is good. But I do see that a number of people think that it will be a quick fix, that there's a thought process embedded in their mind that we do a one-day training seminar, or somebody recently said to me, can we do a half-day training seminar and we'll impart all these skills in our people? And I basically went there to talk to that particular person about conducting a really tailored training seminar, ongoing coaching and development, and he basically got me to do a 6-hour workshop. So I think a lot of sales managers are looking at quick fix solutions, number one. Number two, you've already alluded to it, Peter. A lot of sales managers today are inundated with things that computers are supposed to wipe out, and that is paperwork. They have meetings to go to, they have reports, they have a number of administrative issues, and somebody's just put their ABC, always be closing. Yeah, okay, some things don't change, but I still believe that always be opening is somewhat more powerful than that. And I find that a lot of sales managers, they are just overcome, whether it's bad time management, bad planning, and a lot of it is, but they're overwhelmed by paperwork, and they don't seem to have time to get out with their people. I've said to people, you need to spend maybe 2 days a week on the road. They get apoplectic when I mention that. So those are probably a couple of the issues. And another issue with a lot of sales managers is their own personal planning.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe a leader in one way and kind of following themselves in another.
Yeah.
Vic's just asked a question, and I'll just come back to it. What was the rule shown on the slide, communication and collaboration? Can we get back to that?
Where was that slide? How far back was that, Vic? You might want to put in, could you give us a little more to go on there, Vic, and we'll try and find the slide for you.
You just had it. Hang on.
Read it.
Just 1 sec.
Move us forward.
Don't move. Don't move. There you go. Is that the one?
Well, that's communicating
and collaborating?
Remote sales force.
Second last one. It's the second last one.
Well, while we're trying to figure this out, I've been reminded by our marketing manager that we're going to send out a case study of a client who is using this technology to train their sales force, Untitled solutions. So that will go out to everybody who's here. I would say, at a rough guess, Vic, I would say that communication and collaboration equals great sales results. But I'm not too sure. Equals engagement. Thank you. There we go.
All right.
I found it.
That's the one we're on.
Adding also to the comments earlier around what are you looking for in a sales team and ways to make improvements. I think having a shared sense of purpose and a shared vision in your sales team. So whether it's a mission statement or a vision statement that's exclusive to the sales team, not to the business, but the sales team, and established values. One of our values is nothing is more important than prospecting. And it ties in with what you said there, Kevin, around always be opening. Prospecting is the priority in the day. It's done in the mornings. The whole team does it together. Prospecting before lunchtime, booking meetings. Once you've booked meetings, move on into your other activities. If you've got business coming into the pipeline, it's going to come out the other side eventually. No business coming in means no business coming out.
And the pipeline is always larger at the top than it is at the bottom.
Yeah, correct.
That's a good thought process. The idea of everybody being searching for business in the morning. So does that create a competitive edge amongst your sales team?
Yeah, well, we call it an established norm, right? It's just an established norm. It's just what you do. That's what the sales team do, and it's very, very effective. Rather than one person slugging it out on the phones on their own, and then they give up, and then another person slugs it out on the phones on their own. Everybody does it together, gets out of the day, moves on. Let's face it, it's the least favoured part of a salesperson's day.
Yeah, it's not pretty, but consistency definitely works in that regard, doesn't it?
That's right.
Yeah,
it sure does.
Okay, let me ask if either of you, or let me ask both of you, perhaps if you got one more point you might want to make. It doesn't matter if you don't, but whether you got one more point you want to make at this stage before we consider wrapping things up. Unless, of course, we've got a couple more questions coming through from everyone. If you have a question in your head, jump on that message box right now and send it. Otherwise, we'll get to a point where we might almost call it quits. But Kevin, do talk.
I'll just make a point. I've said it before, but praise and recognition is very, very important. And there is an old saying, and I hope I've got it right in my mind. A good sales leader gets people to have confidence in him or her. A great sales leader allows people to have confidence in themselves. And I'd like to wrap on that particular point.
Cool. Kurt?
Yeah, very, very well put, Kevin. Yeah, we're talking today about web conferencing. There's no substitute for face-to-face. However, in our case, and possibly in yours, web conferencing is going to allow you to get in front of the right markets, the right people that you wouldn't be able to without it in a more meaningful way than telephone and email.
Yeah, look, I've worked with clients. I prefer to get in front of clients because I can, when I've got a camera in their face and lights in their face when they're standing in front of a microphone and doing presentation skills coaching and mentoring. You can see what's going on really, really quite strongly. But I have worked with plenty of clients on the web, and you can get good results from it. Certainly, I find I can, or perhaps I'm just a rock star. I don't know, but I find that you can do X amount of stuff. Sure, as Kurt says, there's probably that last 10 or 15% that is the bit you can't quite do, and that may mean you've got to hook up with them from time to time. So, guys, I think at this point in time, unless somebody has another question and it needs to be in the next nanosecond that it needs to arrive at me, I think we might call it a day because we've covered off on quite a number of pieces here. And so Kurt Juson from Redback Conferencing and Kevin Cahalane, I think that's where we're up to at this stage, guys. Thank you for that. And a message from Fiona McTaggart, and thank you, Fiona, to say thank you and great info from you guys. So
yeah, thank you.
Thanks to everybody who came along. Thank you indeed.
Coming in there now. So, look, thank you for hopping online. You're doing yourself some service, even if you only pick up one or two slight things. I'm sure that's going to help your cause over the next length of time. And of course, these kind of web conferencing things are done from time to time. And of course, Redback will be in touch with you in that regard. If you do have any more questions, sure, you can jump on and ask them. And I imagine, Kurt and Kevin, if we have questions that come into our head in the next week, can we throw them at you? And how best should we do that, Kevin, to you?
Anybody can just go to our website. We have an email address, Kevin@Sasimo, that's SASEMO.com. Anybody that wants to send me a question, please feel free to do so. Kevin@Sasimo.com.
And that's, of course, an abbreviation of Sales and Service Momentum.
That's it, yeah.
Kurt,
it is there. Thank you.
Yeah, but there's an exit survey that you'll be placed into after the webinar, and details there. We're a little easier to find. We're Redback Conferencing. We put on the webinar today, redbackconferencing.com.au.
Cool. All right, kids. I think that's where we're up to. Thanks to Sarah, who has been facilitating, and we look forward to your involvement next time. But for the moment, it's been a delight to be part of this, and we'll chat soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.